Today's Stripe Show podcast is brought to you by About Golf Simulators. And we're back, Stripe Show podcast on a Tuesday, coming at you hot, coming at you live. Got my red on. United States, the picks are in, and we're ready to go. We got a team, folks, that Zach Johnson has assembled, his boys, and they're ready to make the trip over to Rome, Italy, or excuse me, Rome. Marco Simoni. Got at the backdrop here. This is the 8th hole, par 5. Like, fantastic hole. Can't wait for people to see that. I'm actually going to be playing the course this afternoon. As today's podcast brought to you by About Golf Simulators. I've got the golf course where they'll be playing the Ryder Cup. The only thing in here is you don't get the slope, the up and down. Zach Johnson was talking about it, how this is built up on a hill, and it's going to be a tough walk. In here, every lie's flat. It's 72 degrees, although I got a hurricane coming, so I'm going to have to play it this afternoon and get home. But I can't wait to see the whole course. It's Tuesday. You know what that means? Our man Keith Stewart at Read the Line joins us. And I know on this Tuesday, he's counting cash because you almost pulled off the feat last week that you've been looking to do. And just 1 week later, you did it. Tell our audience.
So, good afternoon there,
Yeah.
Mr. Travis Fulton, my esteemed host. It's always been my goal at Read the Line as a PGA professional to gain as much exposure as I could for for golf itself. So that's why I cover the LPGA and PGA Tour. So I always wanted to win with both tours on the same Sunday. And 2 weeks ago, Vic wins BMW. We have him, and I have Esther Hensley, young German star on the LPGA Tour, and she loses in a playoff, and I'm super bummed. And it's the second time this year we had a first and a second. You go back to March, Jin Young Ko was first, and Rory doesn't pull it off at API, so I have a first and a second again. And I'm thinking, man, how do I break through on this? So last week, talked about Victor on the no-stroke side in the Gross tournament, and Vic pulled it off. Thankfully, no playoffs because the PGA Tour didn't recognize it, so we get the win, 19 under par. For 4 days. Pretty good work by Mr. Hovland. What's he, like 100 under for 2 tournaments? Pretty good. And then that night, the ultimate, it was a sweat in Atlanta, don't get me wrong. But Victor goes birdie, Xander birdie on last hole, they tie, right? Great. But he wins. We get a winner. Use BetMGM, you don't have dead heat reductions and you can't complain. But use other books and they cut it. These things happen. But Sunday night, Vancouver, Women's Canadian Open, LPGA, Megan Kang, who I wrote about, 3-shot lead going into the final round. Shaky. Never won before on the LPGA. 40-1, plus 4,000.
Wow.
In the bet category. 40-1, never won before.
And she does it.
And she's leaking oil all the way to the house. This thing's unbelievable. If you didn't watch this thing, I had so many people texting me on Sunday night. I'm watching the LPGA and I'm losing my mind right now because 40-1 on the LPGA it only happens a couple times a year. It's top heavy over there. The favorites tend to win. A good win's in the 20s. A 40 is awesome, right? Megan Kang never won before. We've got her though, right? Bogey's the 71st hole to fall 1 shot out. Jin Young Ko's in trouble on 18. Unbelievable up and down from the trees, right? She makes par, 1 shot lead. Only 4 players have birdied the final hole. Kang, great off the tee. That's why I picked her. You have to be good up there, get those tall pines that just line every fairway like a hallway. She stripes it down the middle, hits 9-iron to 4 feet, makes the putt, goes to the playoff. 5th player of the day to make birdie on the last hole. And she knows what she's got to do because Jin Young Ko's second ranked player in the world or 3rd ranked player in the world's right in front of her. It all plays out in front of her. She's focused, makes birdie, go to the playoff, Ko's up first, snap hooks it into the woods. unplayable lie. It's over. It's over. One swing in a playoff, it's over. Kang down the middle. Kang hits the green, 2-putt par. Ko makes double, 40-1. First time winner. First time to LPGA and PGA Tour in the same day. Phenomenal day. It's awesome. Love it.
Congratulations. I know that's something you've been looking to do. And then we've had 11 winners, folks, here on the Stripe Show at Reading the Line, including the last 2 weeks, of course, Victor Hovland winning the BMW Championship and then the Tour Championship. Go back, check out my pod, All Things yesterday, All Things Victor Hovland. Really broke down his game completely, and particularly really kind of the evolution of his short game and how he has changed that technique really through the progression of two different coaches. A lot about, I think, the memory bank and experience that he's been building up with his putting, which has gotten better over the last couple of years. And then, of course, just that power fade and what goes into that. So let's turn the page, if you will, and let's talk a little bit about the United States. And you know how we do it, right? So I can't break.
Hey, you keep playing music,
this
you keep winning. So play all the songs you want.
I know. Every time I play music, we win. You ever heard the song?
Hey, it's a nice touch. I mean, Jersey. I'm a Jersey guy. You're playing the boss.
All right. So Zach Johnson, more of that song later. Zach Johnson just went on the Golf Channel out there in Frisco. And, of course, his team, he already had 6 guys on his team. They qualified through points: Scotty Scheffler, Wyndham Clark, Brian Harmon, Patrick Cantlay, and Max Homa. Xander Schauffele. Yeah. Xander Schauffele being the 6th. Those are the 6 that qualified for points. And then, of course, now he's got to pick 6. And he goes on, and the 6 guys that he picks: Sam Burns, Ricky Fowler, Brooks Koepka, Colin Morikawa, Jordan Spieth, and Justin Thomas, who we haven't seen play in quite a while because he didn't make the playoffs.
He's resting.
And so there are your 6: Burns, Fowler, Koepka, Morikawa, Spieth, Thomas. The guys that are left off: Cam Young, Keegan Bradley, Denny McCarthy, Lucas Glover. I guess you could even throw Tony Finau in there, but I think the first 4 probably the 4 more likely. So let's tee it up there. You watch Zach's press conference. How did he do? How did it land for you?
I mean, outside of people trying to break the story last night a day early and not letting the thing play out, I guess that's the world we live in. No surprises for me after Sunday, what I watched down in Atlanta. Burns versus Keegan, in my mind, because that's who I thought that last spot was down to. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I'm a bigger fan of either one, but after hearing Keegan in Chicago in the press room talk about how much he wanted to make the team, and knowing Marco Simone and doing some research already for the last 2 weeks on the golf course, ball striking wise, I was kind of pulling for Keegan over Burns. And certainly Young was not a part of my decision making because he wasn't there. So it basically played out. The other 5 guys I thought were a lock, and I thought it was just a lot of media mumbo jumbo. You're like bringing up the Brooks conversation, and then Zach in the press conference today. Well, he just basically said Brooks was always there. I've been talking to Brooks for months, type of thing. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense because of his playing record, and we're trying to take the 12 best American players, right? It's not the 12 best PGA Tour players, right? Isn't it the 12 best American players, Travis?
Well, I think it is. And hold that thought, because I have some questions on that, on who are exactly the 12 best United States
question was
players.
Zach, right? How did Zach do?
Yeah, how did Zach do?
Zach did fine. He did fine. He did fine.
If you're playing for Zach and Zach's in the locker room and he's like, "Hey guys, let's get fired up. I got some things to say." Does Zach have it in him to look at these guys, demand their attention, and get them fired up and ready to play and get in the mindset? Is that in Zach Johnson's DNA?
I mean, is it in Steve Stricker's DNA? Is it in Jim Furyk's DNA? I mean, these are the last couple of captains. I think there's two questions there. One, he has their respect. He's a two-time major winner for a guy that doesn't look like a prototypical modern golfer. So I think that if Zach wants to play that role and be like, hey, guys, listen to me. There's a team behind you that's telling us to do these things. I think he has the respect of the players. I think they need to find ways to motivate themselves. And I think that that has a lot to do with who they pick.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a shift here. I think you go back to the Ryder Cup in years past when the United States was not getting it done. And
Sure.
I think part of the beef was that all of these guys are just kind of their own individual enterprises and they're not coming together as a team. As example, led by Tiger and Phil, right? Who were the two biggest names. And there just wasn't that camaraderie, right? That team atmosphere.
Yeah.
Did the Ryder Cup really matter to Tiger, Phil? And did that sprinkle down to the rest of the team? And so we started to see this shift, a lot of it through the pack that they set up at the PGA. And I think the Ryder Cup now is starting to mean something to a lot of these players. There's a lot of guys, beginning with Justin Thomas, who have spearheaded this thing and have led by example and have made it important to them, like the most important thing to them, right? I mean, like, I think it's right there. It's right there next to winning a major championship, I think, for Justin Thomas. And Sam Burns came out and said it when they asked him. Sam Burns said, look, this was my number one goal, was to be on the Ryder Cup team. Forget about winning the match. Number one goal to be on the Ryder Cup team. So we've seen the shift. We've been more competitive. We haven't won overseas in 30 years, but we did pretty well. The last time out, the President's Cup, we were dominant. And so you can see the shift towards, all right, let's build this locker room. Let's build this for us, the team. You could hear Zach Johnson alluding to that. How is this player? What does he bring to the table in way of skill set? And does it fit the golf course? But you almost got the feeling more than that. How will that player fit in with this team and make us whole as a United States Ryder Cup team?
I mean, it seems fairly obvious to me what was going on.
Okay.
You know, just use the let's start with the Burns Keegan story. If they were tied, Scotty votes for Burns. And there was a number of times in the press conference where Zach referred to very openly about the amount of input he was getting from the top six.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's kind of a negative line of questioning to go into in an open forum like that. But I mean, I don't know that I've ever heard anyone. I mean, I don't think Steve Stricker kind of answered questions that way. I've talked a lot to the players that were qualified. I talked to the qualified guys. I talked to the top six. Who did they want? Right. And it's all very interesting. I mean, there's two things that happen here. We talked about this before we jumped on air. Either the buddies trip to Rome works or it doesn't.
Yeah.
And they will be justified or crucified accordingly. Pardon the pun, I guess. Over there.
Yeah, I think it's fair. No, I think it's fair. I think you can classify this as quote unquote a buddies trip. I mean, I don't think there's any denying that Scotty Scheffler is best friends with Sam Burns. They're really good friends, right? And
Yeah.
Sam Burns is right there, number 12 in points coming in, and he jumps Keegan Bradley at 11, who I think is worth the debate. We'll get into that. And he jumps Cam Young, which I think when you look at Cam Young, Cam Young just didn't do enough. I mean, Cam Young hasn't won a golf tournament. And Cam Young did not have a great year. Now, is he a great driver of the ball? And will that play out well on that particular golf course? Yeah, I think so. But I don't think Cam Young has penetrated that circle. I don't think Cam Young is one of the boys. And I'm not so sure Keegan Bradley is in that circle as well. That's not Keegan Bradley's personality. And so I think when you start looking at the decision, that I agree comes down to between Sam Burns and Keegan Bradley, who both finished ninth at the Tour Championship. Keegan finished 29th at the BMW. I think Sam was 15th, somewhere in there at the BMW. Sam Burns had 1 win this year. Keegan Bradley's had 2. Statistically, you start matching them up, they're very, very close. I mean, Keegan Bradley, to me, is the guy that kind of got snubbed here and left off. And I think what it came down to was, who do we want in the locker room? Who fits in this circle? And I think not only is Sam Burns a rookie on the United States Ryder Cup team, I think he's a rookie as far as one of the boys.
And we're all automatically like saying that the last, I've done this because I figured Ricky would just be on, but Ricky only has 1 win. Ricky's on a comeback trail. Why does Ricky just jump right in? Is it because they're going to have 4 rookies, and Ricky, Cam Young would be another rookie, and Ricky's been to 4 of these. So I think at the bottom of the list there were a couple different guys, and JT was not part of the bottom of the list. I think that if you went to the top 6, I think 7 would have been Jordan, 8 would have been JT. And then after that, there would have been discussions. Okay, look what Brooks has done. Okay, well, he's number 9. Okay, now we've got 3 of them done. And then now you got 3 more, and then there was a big mess there, right? Yeah. And then certain guys did certain things, but, it just this is the way it has turned out. Mm-hmm. We could discuss it till we're as blue as my shirt in the face, but at the end of the day, that inner circle matters. Someone's got to play with Scotty, right? Someone's going to play with Jordan. And it's the team points where we've always lacked over the years. And I can't really begrudge the task force for trying to put together teams that have proven to be successful over the years. So I get that we're going to sit here and say, are there other players in the world of golf that are American that are better players than Sam Burns or Keegan Bradley or Cam Young that maybe play on other competitive tours? I get that. But, if Xander didn't qualify and Patrick did, Xander's on, right? Because they play well together.
Right.
If Jordan is in and JT or vice versa, one of them is getting on. And I think that Scotty is so important to the team to perform well. Sam Burns became a very viable option.
HackMotion is an innovative wrist analysis sensor and app that measures players' wrist and hand movement in the golf swing. With audio feedback and different drill modes, it offers the capability to improve players' wrist mechanics in the golf swing to provide a better club face control and impact position. HackMotion can be used for both full swing and putting to cover all golf shots. HackMotion is used by some of the top golf coaches today around the world. Visit hackmotion.com. I think that's valid. Yeah, I think who's going to play with Scotty Scheffler, right? That is a valid question because Scotty Scheffler needs to play. And he is the best tee to green.
5 times. He needs to play 5 times.
Yeah, and he needs to produce in those points. And the putter is a major, major issue right now. Yeah. I mean, I hope he makes the changes here in the last few weeks. In the next few weeks. My goodness. I mean, let's go. It's a problem, And so who's going to play with Scheffler? I think when you go down the top 6, like Wyndham Clark, Brian Harmon, I don't think they're going to play 5 times. No, they're not going to play 5 times. I mean, Cantlay, is going to be matched up with Xander, and deservedly so. Those guys have been absolute killers. Yeah. Max Homa, quote, Zach Johnson's prom king. Max Homa's one of the boys. I mean, that might be Max Homa's number 1 goal. Sam Burns' number 1 goal is to play in the Ryder Cup. Max Homa's number 1 goal is to be the number 1 boy. So he's Zach's prom king. So does Max play? Be interesting. That Jordan and JT are going to play, right? Isn't that given? Those two are going to play.
Yeah.
And so who do you put with Scotty? Do you put Max Homa with Scotty? Do you put Brooks Koepka with Scotty? Do you put Colin Morikawa with Scotty? I mean, do you think Sam Burns is going to play with Scotty? open up right there on day one?
So Scotty's done a lot since Whistling Straits. You know, he's got 6 wins, a
Yeah.
Masters. I mean, there's a
Yes.
lot going on there. People
Yeah.
forget he didn't even play. He wasn't. He was the last man on the team at Whistling Straits. He only played in 3 matches. He went 2-0-1.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So everyone thinks back to the Rahm singles match where he boat raced him. That's great. And that might have been Scotty's coming out moment because he wins a couple months later at Waste Management in a playoff over Cantley. But at the end of the day, he never even played foursomes in Whistling Straits. 0 matches in alternate shot. And he went 1-0-1 in 4-ball. And they had him with Bryson. So, like, this was probably one of the most important questions they had to answer, which certainly favored Sam Burns in the end, right? Who is going to go with the number 1 ball striker in the world? Because now he's got to be the lead guy to play foursomes. Nobody hits it better, and somebody can putt for him half the time. You kidding me? Right?
Yeah.
Like that. Like he's got to be the guy that's going to go off in every foursomes match first with who, right? And is that Sam Burns or is it Brooks Koepka? They'll go through their pods and they'll figure it out. But who's that putter going to be? Is it Ricky? Right? I mean, Ricky and Burns make a lot of sense. It does not make sense to put Morikawa there because he's not a great closer with the flat stick as well. He's probably a good fit for Max. Down in Atlanta, 2 days in a row, 2 practice rounds. The 2 guys that were out there, Max and Colin. Next day, Max and Colin. Yes, they're California buddies and so on and so forth. But
I think that's
you can see,
I think that's good.
Yeah. So I think the Scotty, the team thing is so important to all of this because every match is only worth 1 point. So even if we go 8 for 12, like we do, it seems like every Sunday, right, in singles, which we probably will again, how do you win enough team points? And you can't just do it with the 2 teams you have set, X-Man and Iceman, and then, of course, JT and Jordan. So Scott, to put somebody with Scotty was such a humongous deal to this team. And I think that's where, in the end, Burns becomes, the number 1 option to put out there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going to be Keegan. And if you look at the rest of the guys on the team, I'm sure when they asked Scotty said, I was most comfortable with Sam. Okay, well, geez, if he's most comfortable with Sam, then that's a good thing. Now, they didn't have great success in the President's Cup together, but I don't know.
Which makes it risky, right? Because now it's risky, right? Because they didn't.
No.
Yeah, they didn't have a lot of success there. Sam Burns versus Keegan Bradley. We talked about the wins. Keegan has 2, Sam Burns has 1. Yeah. Strokes gained total. Keegan's 22nd. Burns is, I think, I can't read my own writing, but it looks like 30th. Tee to green, Keegan 46, Burns 79th. Off the tee, Burns is 38th, Keegan 48. Approach.
Yeah.
Keegan 43rd, Burns 124th.
Yeah.
Around the green, Burns 89, Keegan 109. Putting, Burns 11,
Burns. Yeah.
Keegan 21st. I mean,
so Burns ends up being Scotty's foursomes partner, essentially, right?
Yep.
Because
I think that's what it means. Yeah.
He can't hit his irons that well, but he can drive the ball and he can putt.
Yep.
So he makes a perfect complement to somebody who's first in every statistical category. And then in the 4-ball, you line Scotty up with somebody who's going to make just an S-load of birdies, whether that be Brooks or Ricky or, someone that's just going to, that's can make 10 birdies a round.
Yeah.
And Scotty will make 18 pars probably. He'll make his birdies, don't get me wrong, but
so all right, so that's the logic, I think, around the Burns Colin, or the Sam Burns versus Keegan Bradley, which I think is, in my eyes, that's the number 1 that kind of stands out. I think it came down to that. I think we've skinned that. Now, I think the other logic that we need to discuss is Justin Thomas, who has had a really bad year and Didn't even make the playoffs. If I would have said to you at the beginning of the season, Justin Thomas will not make the FedEx Cup playoffs, you would look at me like, what are you doing? Do you have a leak in the studio? Are you okay?
Gas leak.
Yeah.
He's thin air. Can't
and
think.
So that's how bad it's been, right? That's how bad it's been. His putting's not good. And it leaked into other parts of his game. So Justin Thomas is not the same version of himself. But what Justin Thomas is and has been, I should say, is a two-time major champ. He's won a lot on the PGA Tour. He is the emotional leader, as I don't know exactly how he put it. Zach did, but he referred to heart and soul, the heart and soul of team competition. He loves it, and it matters to him. And he has produced, Justin Thomas, 6-2-1 in the Ryder Cup. And so we're going off of, hey, this matters to Justin. He has been the emotional leader. He's going to be in this clubhouse, in this team room, and he fits in. He's going to contribute in every possible way that way, and we're hoping that he can get his game turned around and elevate it to the biggest moment. We need him to play better than he has played all year. So he's made it off of pedigree. He's made it off of that he is one of the boys. He's made it that he has been one of the best players on the United States over the last handful of years, right? That's why he's made it. He didn't make it off his play this year. We know.
I don't know if I like where this is going.
So based off of that logic, Keith.
Yeah.
My boy.
Yeah. Here we go.
The first one, prom king. Wow, it's thick in that circle.
Yeah, there's a lot of attaboys.
So based off of that logic, right?
Yeah.
Why not Dustin Johnson? Are you telling me based off of that logic, why not Dustin Johnson over Ricky Fowler? Or, I mean, you have to throw Sam Burns in there. Like we talked about it, Sam versus Keegan is why. But you could say, why not Dustin Johnson based off the same criteria and logic that you've just now qualified and picked Justin Thomas?
As you were taking me down that yellow brick road there, I thought you were going to go Bryson. Yeah, well, I slightly. I thought you were going to go Bryson first, and I have a comeback for that. In that, yes, is Bryson one of the 12 best U.S. players? There's no doubt about it. But he has had an up and down 2 years, and he's definitely not the most likable teddy bear. Fine, okay. His record on the road in the Ryder Cup, not great. Over in France. So there's some holes in his resume, right? Yeah. But you go DJ. And I just think back to that question that they asked him in the media room following the win. And they said, you're the oldest guy in the room. Can you keep up tonight? And DJ was like, are you kidding me? Right? Like, do you know me type of deal? Right? And everyone laughed because they knew that not only was he the elder statesman in the room, but none of them could keep up with DJ, right? So how is he not a likable guy? And he certainly got the pedigree. If we're just going on pedigrees, and then just go back to the last one, he's 5-0, and then you paired him with Colin, which nobody saw coming, and they went undefeated, right? So they went 3-0 together. So you go, oh well, and my point earlier is still, we need to win the team matches. We are great in singles. It's a proven, let's go look it up on Wikipedia. We kill it in singles. We need to win more team matches. If that was a successful team in 2021 and DJ's still, he's 8th in points on the Live Tour. He was okay in majors this year, not DJ standard, but he was okay. And it's a great question. It's a great question.
So
it's a tough one. That's a tough one. And it just, all right. So at the end of the day, what people aren't going to like to hear is that there's a live bias. There's a live bias.
Of course.
Yeah.
And, it makes sense to have Brooks in because he won the PGA. And, can you imagine if he would have won the US Open and not the PGA? So like that kind of fell into their hands a little bit, that
Well,
we have to have the PGA champ in there.
no, you don't, because in 2021 it was Phil and he didn't make the team. Right? So you don't have to have the PGA champ in there, but if you have a 5-time major winner in the prime of his career who was second at the Masters, I mean, Brooks is tied for wins with JT. Now he's got one more cup, but he's got 6 wins in those matches, right? So he's definitely one of those guys you got to lean on that's been there, done that. And him being 7th in points or whatever, that's an easy pickup. The DJ thing, see that at the end of the day, people are not going to want to accept this, but there's a live bias. And those guys were not even talked to or looked at or whatever, and they could fall back on the fact that they could say, well, DJ was 40th on points. We would never take the 40th guy on points.
Yeah.
And no one's going to admit to the fact that the system would be flawed for points because now we have Americans on 2 different elite tours, right? Yeah. For lack of a better phraseology there or category. And people just don't want to hear that, but that's the fact of the matter. They're not going to want to hear that Scotty Scheffler wanted Sam Burns and we picked him over certain other people. And they're not going to want to hear that we didn't look at live guys unless they made us look at them. And quite honestly, DJ and Bryson did not do enough this year to be looked at. All 58s aside,
Yeah, right. Yeah, I can argue off Bryson for sure. But DJ I can't based off the JT criteria. I just can't.
Oh, the DJ thing's brutal.
He checks off every box. He's been there. I go back to what you just said earlier with Morikawa, 6-5-1 at the Ryder Cup. I mean, he's won 21 times on tour, a couple majors. I mean, this dude's done it all, and I kind of like that he was the big brother, he does fit in that inner circle. I think he is part of that, unless he's done something stupid and now he's not part of it anymore. Who knows? But I think he is in that inner circle. And you can't tell me that Sam Burns is a better player than Dustin Johnson. You can't tell me that Ricky Fowler is a better player than Dustin Johnson. Can't.
No.
You can't.
It's just not going to sit well with anybody because you can't. There's no real reason why. When you start to poke these things apart, there's 12 independent bodies coming in, 6 qualified. All right, so now there's 10 guys being considered for these other 6 spots, and they all have their own storylines, and they all have pros and cons. So it comes down to, again, one of 2 things are going to happen.
Yeah.
Did the buddies trip work or did it not work?
Yeah. And so I'll finish with this. I'll go back to my initial question with you with Zach Johnson. How did he do? Right. Okay. I think Zach Johnson's great. He's a great guy. Family man. Has been, you got to respect Zach Johnson, the player, I think outworked so many, overachieved, I think, in so many. He's just, you have to respect him in every possible way on the golf course and off. As a captain in his first go, in front of the, picking his team here, and now off we go. It just felt like the picks were already in a month ago. It felt like, we've got our inner circle and we know what we're going to do. And man, I don't think anything's going to really change. He's not going to admit that, but I think this is kind of what it was going to be. Right. And the questions about the criteria, I would like to hear a little bit more definitive of what the criteria is. You could tell it was just very wishy-washy. Like he didn't even know some of the algorithms. He's like, I'm not even sure if I understand. Oh, great. Like, about the golf course and this and that. And it's just like, okay, what are you hanging your hat on other than, well, we're taking it all into consider. I mean, I want, what is it that you as a captain is important to you? Right? Like in the NFL, a defensive mind, an offensive mind. That's what we believe in. Right? Like you know what it is. But what is important to you other than, well, there's a lot of factors that come into this and we kind of weigh it out and one's not more important than the other. And it's just all, look over here and then no, look back, and so there's no definitive. And what that tells me is that, okay, these picks were already made. We know who our boys are. We know who fits in and makes us whole in the locker room. And that's what I take from. That's what the criteria is. Yeah, there's some others and you can't be a dog and this and that, but it's who fits in the locker room and makes us whole. Who's one of those boys in the locker room. And so I would have just like to hear Give me some criteria. Give me some meat. Give me something to kind of chew on a little bit on what's important in a skill set of a player, right? And taking on this golf course and handicapping the course and make me excited about that rather than well, I just walk away. We've got our boys. This is the buddies trip. Everyone gets along. We like their wives. It's going to be great. This is the team room. It's going to be awesome. So look, maybe that's what we need. We've come together. We got some guys that the Ryder Cup that it means something. We seem to be moving the right way. And so maybe this is exactly what the USA team needs and is the right recipe moving forward. We'll see. The best players, but also he knows, and I want the ball late. I'm comfortable late. That is a big time combination. Attention golfers, if you're looking to upgrade your game with a set of high-quality clubs that are blazing fast, beyond forgiving, and beautifully made, check out the all-new PXG Gen 6 golf clubs. Not only are they easy to hit, they deliver outstanding distance and incredible accuracy, lowering your scores and bringing you more fun on the golf course. What more could you want? Schedule your Gen 6 fitting today at pxg.com or by calling 844-PLAY-PXG.
Here's
why
the thing.
why are you looking at me?
It's just like
Your
no one
face
does
is
themselves.
white.
No,
It's as
nobody
white as
does.
Mark Woods was on the Golf Channel. Jesus, Mark, you see him on the Golf Channel?
I mean, nobody does themselves any favors, is what it comes down to. The PGA of America has hired an analytics team to go through all of this stuff, break down the golf course, break down the players, go over 2 years, do all of these things, and then to have Zach sit in front of everybody and say, I don't really understand the numbers and everything, but this is who we took.
That's
right.
Great. Yeah, awesome.
Now, he does that because everything is like self-deprecating, so that way he's under less attack. Because you've got like Alex Maselli and Alex Shupak and all the live guys that just constantly push live, media agendas at everybody. Well, they're taking that angle. And then the other angle is like the JT thing. Did he deserve to be? He wasn't in the playoffs, whatever. And the guy's just like completely under attack. And,
Mm-hmm.
is Zach the perfect guy to handle that onslaught?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Is Fred, people might say like a Freddie Couples, is he the perfect guy because he's so casual? And I would say, well, I would take Zach into that room before I take Freddie, right? You go back to what Freddie said in July where he was like, oh yeah, Cam Young's on this team. When he was on Sirius XM, and then like, I don't see Cam Young on that Zoom this morning, right? So like at the end of the day, I think, not to get all like cultural on you and everything, but like the media themselves, the whole machine doesn't do themselves any favors because we want Zach to get up there and go rah rah, but yet we're such a divisive culture. It's like nobody wants to be excited about anything. I would love, you made a great point. I would love for Zach to be like, I looked at birdie makers.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at par 4 scoring. These are the 12 best guys at that. That's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm doing, because that's what like Bill Belichick would do.
That's exactly right. That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. I don't think I articulated it as well as I would have hoped, but that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
Zach Johnson, the leader. You're the captain. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what's important to us. And this is our strategy. Now, you don't have to give it all away. I get that. But just the wishy-washy nature of all these things factored in, but it's just like, oh, I mean, okay. Like I walk away from that it's, you guys, it's an inner circle deal. Like we get it, and if that's what it is, then just say that, because I don't know. It was a little from a leadership captain standpoint, taking the bull and here's what's up and here's how we're going to go defeat and win and get everyone excited and on the same page. Because even if I didn't agree with it and they came out and said, look, this is who we are. This is what we're going to do. And this is why. Like I'm on. Like I'm following that leader. I'm going. I'm jumping through the wall. And that's why I went back to, I opened up with you. How did it land for you? Are you going to run, it just everything feels like it's up in the air. There's a lot of components here. A lot of things go into this, Keith. There's not one's not more important than the other. It's just there's just a lot there, and I'm not sure if I even understand that the algorithms. I don't even know. Like, where's the golf course again? Oh yeah, it's in Italy, and it's really hilly, and we've got a lot of good players. And I'm not even sure I'm not even like, look, he wasn't even sure if he called DJ and Bryson.
Oh,
and
he was
told him.
sure. Come on, he was sure. He just didn't want to answer that question. that question was beneath the task force. I mean, how is he not prepared to answer that question? But that's neither here nor there. Hey, here's what it comes down to, Travis. Okay? Here's what it comes down to. If all you do is check boxes, then you never think outside the box. Right? What would be the harm in making this team a rally cry to get behind, like you're saying, and have something that we're going to go do, and everybody show up in John Daly style US tuxedos or whatever, you know what I mean? Like wall-to-wall clothing, and like, let's roll.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's going to be a million like, let's effing go chants and all this stuff. But then when we get in that room, everything's like, calm and mundane and everything. I mean, even the media would get behind that. I mean, look at all of the social media content that Victor Hovland has created around his brand. Chipotle can't pay him enough money right now. Like a guac company couldn't pay him enough money. And people love that stuff. They rally behind it, right? And hiding behind smoke and mirrors, nobody ever likes the idea that they don't know what's going on.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that they need to let people know what's going on. I'm a PGA member, and I would say this to everyone in that room. I would just say, man, people would love to get behind this team. Why won't you let them? It's time to think outside the box. Stop checking them and start like really pushing this thing.
I think those are good points. I think the pushback to that would be, does that resonate in the locker room with that generation of player and with this group? Does that resonate? It may with you and I. We're a little bit older. Most of the media is a little bit older. Like, that's maybe a little more appealing to us, but does that resonate with the athlete mid-20s in the locker room? And so I think that's a valid question on how they would be rallied behind it. Because I do think at the end of the day, the most important thing is we do want the player invested in this. I think for years you could argue that they really weren't. I mean, it was just, there was a lot that were not. It was just something they had to do, and we weren't winning, and it wasn't working. And so they are now, and JT is the emotional leader of that. And so it's not a perfect scenario. And so there's a lot of factors that go into it. It is a little bit more, it's always probably been political, but it feels even more so now, obviously, with the PGA and the PGA Tour and LIV and all that and everything that's going on. We know it's more political, but how do you first and foremost keep the attention of the core group of players? I think that it does start there, and then you have to kind of manage off of that. And I think the captain kind of spins off of that to some degree and is kind of, quote unquote, the face of that, and is very vague. And but his first job is to get those players, that core group of players, excited and focused on task at hand. And so that's, I think, the difference between inside the locker room and what motivates these guys and how do they come together versus us out here looking at it more externally and saying, yeah, I would like Zach Johnson, the captain, to come out there and be definitive of, hey, here's what's important to us, and here's why we went this way, and let's go. Right? Because those answers, that's what hits me right here. And that's where I'm like running through that door. USA, let's go. Let's go. Right? USA Golf. Don't make me turn this back on. Let's go. Let's go. Right? Like, that's what motivates me. But the question is, does it motivate Scotty Scheffler? Does it motivate Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay, Jordan Spieth, like those guys? So it's an interesting debate. We'll stay after it. There's more to discuss here, because now that the team is set, we'll come back here maybe in a couple weeks. We're going to take next week off. There's no golf.
Yep.
It's Labor Day, but we'll come back. And of course, the PGA Tour. Hey, the PGA Tour starting, folks. Get excited in the brand new race. JT's playing. Let's see if JT can break 80 out in California.
That's tough.
And then we'll do Fortinet, right? And then we'll come back with some strategy and kind of where we're leaning on picks and whatnot for the Ryder Cup.
Hey, your counter is warranted about different generational thinking.
Yeah.
But I would mainline those guys. I would feed them dopamine, man. I would give them as many rah-rah Instagram hits as I could.
Yeah.
Featuring themselves. And I would have those guys ready to run through walls. Because they didn't get to the point where they're that successful without, overcoming some hurdles and some obstacles. Yeah. And most recently we talk about like a Ricky Fowler or Jordan Spieth or Brooks or these guys that have fought back from injuries and slumps and so on and so forth. But well, we shall see.
Maybe instead of Stuart Sink in there as that fifth vice captain, it should be you. They should be grooming you to be the next one.
Oh, let's do it.
Would you pick me as a vice captain?
Would I pick you as a vice captain? Yes,
yeah.
That's important because you keep me grounded.
Okay, good.
All right. You ask the tough questions. And when the PGA brass rolls in and they want to talk to somebody who's like level-headed, I will put you on them, and then I will go with my team, go do something that's important. Right?
Yeah, I keep you grounded, but you make us money. How's that? I'll keep you grounded, but you just keep picking winners and making us money. Is that a deal?
All right. So let's wrap it up with this.
Okay.
In July, the U.S. team was favored. The money line was minus 190. Wow. Okay. It's now down to 138.
Wow.
So now that we know more of the players involved, we have less of a chance of winning. Think about that for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm gonna chew on that. That's a good question. Keith Stewart at Read the Line. If you're not subscribed to him, you're losing money, folks. I mean, we've tons of winners, not just PGA Tour, LPGA Tour. He's very good on the LPGA Tour side. I love the shirt. What are you putting on as we go away here? Oh.
99 Country Club hat. Come on.
I want him back as the captain, the leader.
Ben Crenshaw?
No. I want Crenshaw back. I'd jump through that window for him right now.
Who we missed out on as a captain was Payne.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. There you go. Right there.
All right.
The Country Club. 1999.